Shout out to Tucker Carlson. Let's hear what they got to say.
Deserve a fair living like everybody else, but if they're getting rewarded for it. The unfairness of it drives you crazy. And it's particularly galling in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the whole constellation of people around Jeffrey Epstein, all of whom seem to be getting away with scams. And how do you know they're getting away with scams? I'll tell you how, because they're useless and they're rich. So how do you come to a place where some of the least impressive, most useless people who have no actual skills become billionaires? How's that legitimate? And by the way, if you ask this question, at least in Washington, it's like, oh, well, yeah, it sounds like you're a socialist. Sounds like socialism. Yeah, okay, I'm a socialist now. All right. I was a Qatari agent or a bigot. Now I'm a socialist. All right. Leaving aside my committed socialism, can you answer the question? How did Bill Ackman get $9 billion? Bill Ackman, a pretty impressive guy? I know Bill Ackman. No. Bill Ackman's like well-connected and super aggressive. That's it. And I think, well-connected, super aggressive people deserve a fair living like everybody else. But if you're accruing $9 million just because you're willing to do anything, I don't know why we have to pretend that's good.
Move accordingly. Okay. So Max Blumenthal, he is a journalist for the GrayZone, rattled the internet. I think they're trying to squash this story. Our girl Candace Owens she is on a tear, boy. Ooh, boy. Her hubby has connects kind of in the higher epsilon. So for a minute, I don't know that she's touchable right now. So she's pushing the line, but Jesus Christ.
What was that?
A car drove by through the alley. Okay. I couldn't tell it sounded almost like it might've been a motorcycle though. So usually I'm pretty good about being able to tell engines and what X, Y, and Z is, but that was kind of strange. Sounded weird. Because, it's the people not to be spoken of are involved.
Yeah.
And there's some funny business going on, bro. So systemic, right? So we've just uncovered how similar situations, someone can just decide to handle it a different way. Like there is no one way, right? There's like the way that it's supposed to go, and then there's the way that it does go, right? So you have an investigation, you gather up all the information, and then you don't let all that information out because you got to try a case, and you don't want to ruin the case. You don't want to lose the case on a technicality.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to make sure that you don't poison the, potential jury pool, so on and so forth. You don't put too much information out into the public. You don't know, especially if you don't have these people don't even have for the thing that we were talking about earlier, they don't even have a suspect, but for this, they have a suspect, but then fast forward to where we are now. So some Discord messages came out. And not only that, but there were some leaders of countries, particularly that country not to be named, piped up immediately after this young man's demise, trying to solidify the relationship publicly. I don't think we really realize how much money was being pumped through this guy's organization. I don't think we really realized how large of an operation this was. This guy was only 31 years old. Martin Luther King got popped when he was 38. The Kennedys were early 40s. right? Part of the reason why they got popped is like that's a long time for them to be in government and not, and not be able to wrangle them. You know what I mean? So it's very bold to think that maybe these people had something to do with it. It's a crazy thing to say, but then when you really start to break it down, you say, how do they gain they do actually gain quite a bit by having a relationship with this guy. This guy is the pulse of the conservative youth right now. Yeah. The pulse of the conservative youth. Part of it might even be the reason why numbers are slipping for the country that is not to be named, and the youth, partially they think it's his fault. And because he's starting to kind of wake up to what's been happening and their involvement in our government, it's been making him feel a little bit funny inside. So he's been pushing back a little bit. He did a big event this last summer, Turning Point USA. That's the organization we're talking about, where Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, I think that's his name, the comedian, and a couple of other people that are not so friendly with that country that we are not to be named, had a couple of very viral moments at Turning Point USA. And then right after that event, Mr. Kirk was summoned to the Hamptons, where there was a intervention of sorts, and he was lightly suggested to chill on the anti-small hat community. Now, do I think
the Ministry of Love?
Now, do I think that, Benjamin Netanyahu himself went and did the boom, bop, bang, pow, 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 pow? No, I don't think so. But I mean, if he had resources and he could say, I don't know, get in the ear of this guy on some MK Ultra and go, Shazam. And the guy goes and grabs his 30-06 and marches himself to the spot and bang, does his thing. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. So anyways, Blumenthal. Let's go quickly through this article really quick. Max Blumenthal, a Trump insider of a longtime friend, Charlie Kirk, tells the GrayZone how the conservative leader turning point on Israeli influence provoked a private backlash from Netanyahu's allies, and that left him angry and afraid. The source said anxiety spread within the Trump administration after an apparent Israeli spying operation was uncovered. Oh yeah, by the way, last time Benjamin Netanyahu was here in the United States, they found Israeli tracking devices on the White House's emergency vehicles. The White House's emergency vehicle. That's an interesting thing for you to put a tracking device on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. So this is what I was talking about. Charlie Kirk rejected an offer earlier this year from an Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to arrange a massive new infusion of Zionist money into his Turning Point USA, TPUSA organization, America's largest conservative youth association, according to a longtime friend and of the slain commentator speaking on condition of anonymity. The source told GrayZone that the late pro-Trump influencer believed that Netanyahu was trying to cow him into silence as he began to publicly question Israel's overwhelming influence in Washington and demanded more space to criticize it. Interesting. In the weeks leading up to his September 10th assassination, Kirk had come to loathe the Israeli leader, regarding him as a bully. the source said. Kirk was disgusted by what he witnessed inside the Trump administration, where Netanyahu sought to personally dictate the president's personnel decisions and weaponized Israeli assets like billionaire donor Miriam Adelson to keep the White House firmly under its thumb. Broken Blade, are your alarm bells going off?
Oh, yeah.
My alarm bells are going off. Something about this don't smell right. It smells kind of funky. Smells like a wet turd. You know what I'm saying? Wet turd. According to Kirk's friend, who also enjoyed access to President Donald Trump and his inner circle, Kirk strongly warned Trump last June against, Iran on Israel's behalf. Charlie was the only person who did that, they said, recalling how Trump barked at him in response and angrily shut down the conversation. The source believes that the incident confirmed in Kirk's mind that the president of the United States had fallen under the control of the malign foreign power and was leading his own country into a series of disastrous conflicts. Now, here's look, a lot of us don't understand or don't know much about Turning Point USA. I had to do a little bit, but this is actually really good for those of you that are listening to just go. And you know what? Here's what I also am going to do. I'm going to take this article and I'm going to throw this in the chat for anyone to look at if they ever wanted to check it out. There you go. Kirk was 18 years old when he launched Turning Point USA in 2012. From its inception, his career was propelled by Zionist donors who showered his young organization with the money through neoconservative outfits like the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Interesting. He repaid his wealthy backers over years by unleashing a relentless fire hose of anti-Palestinian and Islamophobic diatribes, accepting propaganda trips to Israel and sternly shutting down nationalist forces challenging his support of Israel during TPUSA events. In the Trump era, few American Gentiles had proven more valuable to self-proclaimed state than Charlie Kirk. Did you know that, Broken Blade? This guy has done more for the youth than anybody else as far as bringing these Republicans. And look, the youth is what carried Trump to the White House, right? A lot can be said about how much this man had to do with the election of Donald Trump. And you say, "Oh, I was living in 2 states when I was still blamed for something." Man, ain't that the truth? But Israel's genocidal assault on the besieged Gaza Strip drove an unprecedented backlash within grassroots right-wing circles, where only 24% of younger Republicans now sympathize with Israel over the Palestinians. Kirk began to shift. Only 24%. That's a little bitty number. That means 75% go the other way. At times, he towed the Israeli line, spreading disinformation about babies being beheaded by Hamas on October 7th and denying the famine imposed on the population of Gaza. Yet he simultaneously seceded to his base, wondering aloud if Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli intelligence asset, questioning whether the Israeli government allowed the October 7th attacks to proceed in order to advance long-term political goals, and parroting narratives familiar to his most vociferous critic on the right, streamer Nick Fuentes. Now, that sounds crazy, right? A little bit. Like, and follow me on this one. I know that these other people over here are planning an assault. I know about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the assault go. I can maybe push, promote, and prod it. I might even fund it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to react. So I'm going to let them do the thing, and then I'm going to react.
That's a classical theory about World War II.
Same strategy, right? What about Vietnam? What about WMD in Iraq? Same strategy.
Same strategy.
Okay. So when Charlie Kirk gets popped, hole punched, there's an overreaction. Guess how many new TPUSA chapters there will be here in the next year? How much fundraising is happening? Someone made note of something earlier. He had almost hit his goal for the amount of chapters at colleges in the United States. Charlie Kirk was. There were a couple thousand chapters short of where he wanted to be, his goal.
Yeah.
They will have tripled his goal by this time next year if this continues. How do you go from top to like beyond top? I don't know. They figured it out.
Water.
They figured it out. Some kind of way they figured it out. This July, at TPUSA Student Action Summit, Kirk provided a forum for the right-wing grassroots to vent its fury about Israel's political hammerlock on the Trump administration. There are speakers from former Fox News stalwarts Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly to the anti-Zionist Jewish comedian Dave Smith denounced Israel's blood-soaked assault on the besieged Gaza Strip, branded Epstein as an Israeli intelligence asset, and openly taunted Zionist billionaires like Bill Ackman for getting away with scams despite having no actual skills. Yikes. Because Ackman's like worth like $9 billion, but he doesn't, like, no one can kind of tell you what he actually does for real. Oh, wait, here's what you call it right here. Shout out to Tucker Carlson. Let's hear what they got to say.
Deserve a fair living like everybody else, but if they're getting rewarded for it. The unfairness of it drives you crazy. And it's particularly galling in the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the whole constellation of people around Jeffrey Epstein, all of whom seem to be getting away with scams. And how do you know they're getting away with scams? I'll tell you how, because they're useless and they're rich. So how do you come to a place where some of the least impressive, most useless people who have no actual skills become billionaires? How's that legitimate? And by the way, if you ask this question, at least in Washington, it's like, oh, well, yeah, it sounds like you're a socialist. Sounds like socialism. Yeah, okay, I'm a socialist now. All right. I was a Qatari agent or a bigot. Now I'm a socialist. All right. Leaving aside my committed socialism, can you answer the question? How did Bill Ackman get $9 billion? Bill Ackman, a pretty impressive guy? I know Bill Ackman. No. Bill Ackman's like well-connected and super aggressive. That's it. And I think, well-connected, super aggressive people deserve a fair living like everybody else. But if you're accruing $9 million just because you're willing to do anything, I don't know why we have to pretend that's good.
Shout out to Tucker Carlson for that. I'm with you on that, bro. So, all of that being said, right? All of that being said. So that's bubbling. That's bubbling underneath, right? And then you got and Broken Blade, again, part of the reason why I did it this way, it's what they don't say, right? It's like reading in between the lines on these press conferences. It's in the releases of the information in the media. It's like, that sounds funny. Why would you write it like that? Why would you say it like that? This is weird. This is, like, it's just not quite right. All of it. So Candace has been aggressively going after these guys.